The crystal chandeliers of the Roosevelt Hotel ballroom cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Daniela Monroe smoothed down her emerald dress. She hated these charity galas, hated the false smiles and empty conversations. But her father insisted the family maintain appearances. At 23, she preferred spending Saturday nights in her studio apartment, paintbrush in hand, losing herself in colors and canvas rather than navigating the treacherous waters of high society. "You look beautiful," Donnie, her sister Claire, whispered, adjusting the diamond necklace around Daniela's neck. "Just smile, make small talk, and we can leave in 2 hours." Daniela forced a smile. 2 hours? I can survive 2 hours. What she didn't know was that across the ballroom, Gabriel Reeves was watching her with an intensity that would have made her shiver. At 35, Gabriel commanded respect and fear in equal measure throughout the city's underworld. His tailored black suit cost more than most people's monthly salary, and his dark eyes missed nothing. He had built an empire from the streets up, and Thomas Monroe had been his greatest rival for the past decade. Tonight was supposed to be neutral ground. The charity gala brought together legitimate business people and those who operated in the shadows, all writing checks to assuage their consciences. Gabriel had attended out of obligation, expecting nothing more than bland conversation and overpriced wine. Then he saw her, Daniela. Monroe laughed at something her sister said, and the sound cut through the ambient noise like a bell. She was nothing like he expected. Where her father was hard and calculating, she seemed soft, genuine. Her eyes held none of the calculation Gabriel saw in everyone else's gaze. She looked almost out of place among the sharks circling the ballroom. "Boss, that's Monroe's daughter, Nico Borelli," murmured at Gabriel's elbow. His right-hand man had been with him for 15 years, long enough to read his moods. The younger one, Daniela. "She teaches art classes to kids in the Bronx." Gabriel took a sip of his whiskey, never taking his eyes off her. "I know who she is. Thomas keeps her away from the business. She's clean. Off limits." "Everything's off limits until it isn't," Gabriel replied, his voice low and dangerous. Daniela excused herself from Claire, needing air and a break from the suffocating crowd. She slipped through the French doors onto the terrace, breathing in the cool October air. The city lights twinkled below, and for a moment, she could pretend she was anywhere else, anyone else. Beautiful view. She turned, startled. The man who stepped onto the terrace was striking, the kind of handsome that seemed almost dangerous. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his eyes held secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "It is," she agreed, suddenly aware they were alone. "I needed a break from all the noise." Gabriel moved closer, maintaining a respectful distance, but near enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and masculine. "You don't enjoy these events? Is it that obvious?" Daniela laughed nervously. "I'm Daniela." She extended her hand, a gesture of innocent politeness that made Gabriel's chest tighten unexpectedly. Her hand was soft, paint-stained despite her obvious efforts to clean them, an artist's hands. "Gabriel," he said simply, holding her hand a moment longer than necessary. If she recognized his name, she didn't show it. Gabriel realized with surprise that she genuinely might not know who he was. While her father and sister were deeply involved in Thomas Monroe's operations, Daniela existed in a separate world, one of art studios and charity work. "What brings you to this party, Gabriel?" she asked, leaning against the terrace railing. "Business. Obligation. The usual reasons people attend these things." He moved beside her, close enough that their arms almost touched. "What about you?" "Family obligation. My father insists we make appearances." She glanced at him sideways. "You don't seem like the charity gala type." "What type do I seem like?" Daniela studied him, her artist's eye taking in the sharp lines of his face, the controlled power in his stance, the way his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. "Someone who doesn't do anything they don't want to do." Gabriel smiled, genuinely amused. "Perceptive. I'm good at reading people. It's part of being an artist." She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "You have to understand people to capture them on canvas. You paint portraits?" Sometimes, mostly I paint emotions, moments, things people feel but can't express. She blushed slightly, as if embarrassed by her honesty. Sorry, I get carried away talking about art. I don't apologize. Gabriel found himself captivated by her passion, the way her face lit up when she spoke about her work. I'd like to see your paintings sometime. Before Daniela could respond, voices erupted from inside the ballroom. Loud, angry voices. She recognized her father's immediately, and her stomach dropped. Gabriel's expression shifted from interested to cold in an instant. He recognized Thomas Monroe's voice too, and the voice arguing with him belonged to Vincent Calabrese, one of Gabriel's associates. I should go, Daniela said quickly. Moving toward the door, Gabriel caught her arm gently. Wait, stay here. That situation isn't for you. That's my father in there. I know. The way he said it made Daniela pause. She looked at him again, really looked, and pieces began falling into place. The expensive suit, the dangerous air, the way people in the ballroom had given him a wide berth, the name Gabriel, spoken with such simple confidence. You're Gabriel Reeves, she whispered, her eyes widening. Yes. She should have been afraid. Her father had spent years warning Claire about men like Gabriel Reeves, the criminals who ran the city's underworld. But standing there on the terrace, with his hand still gentle on her arm, and his eyes watching her with unexpected concern, she wasn't afraid. She was confused, fascinated, drawn to him in a way that made no sense. I really should go, she said, but she didn't move. The doors burst open, and Nico rushed out. Boss, we need to leave. Now, Monroe knows you're here, and he's not happy about the territory dispute. His guys are armed. Gabriel never took his eyes off Daniela. Go inside. Stay with your sister. Don't get involved in whatever happens next. Will you be safe? The question left her lips before she could stop it. Something flickered in Gabriel's expression. Something that might have been surprise, or might have been pain. No one asked him if he'd be safe. People feared him, respected him, obeyed him, but no one worried about his safety. I'm always safe, Angel. The endearment slipped out naturally. But your concern is noted. Nico pulled at Gabriel's arm. Boss? Gabriel stepped back, already transforming into the dangerous man he needed to be. But before he disappeared into the shadows with Nico, he turned back to Daniela. I meant what I said. I want to see your paintings. I'll find you. Then he was gone, and Daniela was left standing on the terrace, her heart racing, her world tilted on its axis. She had just met Gabriel Reeves, her father's greatest enemy, the man she'd been raised to fear and hate. She had just met him, and somehow, impossibly, she wanted to see him again. Inside the ballroom, she found Claire frantically searching for her. Her father was in a heated discussion with his security team, his face red with anger. Where were you? Claire demanded, relief and annoyance mixing in her voice. Getting air! Daniela's hand unconsciously moved to her arm where Gabriel had touched her. What happened? Gabriel Reeves had the audacity to show up here. Dad's furious. He says Reeves is making moves on our territory, being more aggressive. Claire lowered her voice. He says there's going to be a war, Donnie. A real one this time. Daniela watched her father across the room, saw the hatred in his eyes, the barely controlled violence in his posture. Then she thought of Gabriel on the terrace, the way he'd looked at her, the gentleness in his touch despite the danger surrounding them. She had stepped into something dangerous tonight. Something that went beyond family loyalty and territory wars. She had met a man who was supposed to be her enemy, and instead of fear, she felt an undeniable pull toward him. Gabriel Reeves had said he would find her, and part of Daniela hoped he would. Even though she knew hoping for that made her a traitor to everything her family stood for, the war between the Reeves and Monroe families was about to get infinitely more complicated. And Daniela Monroe, the innocent daughter who wanted nothing to do with her father's world, had just become the most dangerous piece on the board. 3 days after the gala, Daniela stood in front of her easel in the community center, helping a 7-year-old named Javier mix colors for his painting of a sunset. The Tuesday afternoon art class was her favorite part of the week. 2 hours where nothing existed except creativity and the pure joy on her students' faces. She didn't notice the black sedan that had been parked across the street for the past hour, or the man inside watching her through the large windows. Gabriel had meant what he said about finding her. It had taken Nico exactly 4 hours to compile a complete dossier on Daniela Monroe. Her apartment in Chelsea, her teaching schedule, her favorite coffee shop, the small gallery in Brooklyn where she sometimes displayed her work. Gabriel had read every detail twice, memorizing the patterns of her life. He knew this was madness. Thomas Monroe had declared open war after the gala incident, and 3 of Gabriel's operations had been hit in retaliation. His own lieutenants were calling for blood, for escalation. Starting something with Monroe's daughter now was the worst possible. Strategic move. Gabriel didn't care. He waited until the class ended and the children were picked up by their parents. Daniela was cleaning paintbrushes in the sink when he walked in, and she froze at the sound of his footsteps. "Hello, Angel," she turned, water dripping from the brushes in her hands. She should tell him to leave. She should call for help. Instead, she found herself drinking in the sight of him in jeans and a black sweater. Looking less like a crime boss and more like someone she might have met in a coffee shop. "You shouldn't be here," she said. But her voice lacked conviction. Probably not. Gabriel moved closer, his eyes scanning the children's artwork pinned to the walls. "But I wanted to see your work. You said you paint emotions?" "These aren't mine. These are my students. Show me yours." Daniela hesitated, then set down the brushes and led him to a corner where several of her canvases leaned against the wall. She pulled one out, a swirl of deep blues and purples, with streaks of gold breaking through. "This is loneliness," she said softly. "The feeling of being surrounded by people, but feeling completely alone." Gabriel stared at the painting, feeling like she'd reached into his chest and painted what lived there. "It's beautiful. And painful, the best art usually is." She pulled out another canvas, this one explosive reds and oranges. "This is anger. Not the hot, quick kind. The slow burn that consumes everything." "You understand darkness?" Gabriel observed, surprised. "Just because I'm not part of my father's world doesn't mean I don't see it. Don't feel it. I grew up watching what that life does to people. The anger, the paranoia, the inability to trust anyone. My father hasn't had a peaceful night's sleep in 20 years. Is that why you stay away from it?" "I stay away because I want to create things, not destroy them." She crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "Why are you really here, Gabriel?" "My father would kill you if he knew. Your people would probably kill me if they knew you were here." "Let them try." The threat in his voice was casual but absolute. "I came because I can't stop thinking about you. 3 days and you're all I see." Daniela's breath caught. "You don't know me? Then let me know you." He stepped closer, invading her space in a way that should have felt threatening, but instead felt electric. "Have dinner with me? It's insane. You and my father are at war. Your father and I have been at war for a decade. This is different." Gabriel's hand lifted, hesitating, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're different. I can't." But she didn't move away from his touch. "People will get hurt. People are already getting hurt. That won't change whether we have dinner or not." His thumb traced her jawline, and Daniela's eyes fluttered closed. One dinner. Somewhere private. Just conversation. She should say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed to say no. But when she opened her eyes and saw the intensity in his gaze, the want and the danger and something that looked almost like hope, she found herself nodding. One dinner. But not anywhere public. And no one can know. Gabriel smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. "I know a place." 2 hours later, Daniela found herself in the penthouse of a building Gabriel owned in Tribeca. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and a private chef had prepared dinner before discreetly disappearing. It was intimate, isolated, and completely inappropriate. It was perfect. "Tell me about growing up as Thomas Monroe's daughter," Gabriel said as they ate. Daniela sipped her wine, considering. "It was lonely. My mother died when I was 8. After that, Dad threw himself into his work, and Claire tried to fill the gaps. We had everything money could buy, and none of what mattered. Love, security, peace, the ability to trust that tomorrow wouldn't bring violence to our door. She looked at him. What about you? How does someone become Gabriel Reeves? His expression hardened. By surviving when you're not supposed to. By being willing to do what others won't. He paused. My father was a cop. Dirty one. He sold information to the highest bidder until someone decided he knew too much. They killed him and my mother when I was 16, I'm sorry. Don't be. I learned the most important lesson that day. In this world, you're either predator or prey. I decided which one I'd be. You never wondered if there was another option? Daniela asked gently. Something besides predator or prey? Gabriel stared at her. No one had ever asked him that. No one had ever suggested his worldview might be incomplete. What other option is there? Being human. Being someone who creates instead of destroys. Someone who loves instead of fears. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. You said, I paint darkness. But I also paint light, Gabriel. The moments when hope breaks through. He turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together. I don't know if I'm capable of that anymore. I think you are. I think that's why you're here. You talked for hours about art and philosophy, about childhood dreams and adult realities. Gabriel told her about the legitimate businesses he was building, his plans to transition away from the violent aspects of his empire. Daniela shared her dream of opening her own gallery, showcasing art from underserved communities. It was nearly midnight when Gabriel's phone buzzed insistently. He ignored it twice before finally checking, and his expression shifted instantly. What's wrong? Daniela asked. Your father just hit one of my warehouses. 3 of my people are dead. He stood, the dangerous crime boss replacing the man she'd been talking to. I need to handle this. Daniela stood too, fear clutching her heart. What are you going to do? What I have to do. He started toward the door, then turned back. This doesn't change what's happening between us. It can't. People are dying, Gabriel. People die in my world all the time. That's the reality. He crossed back to her, cupping her face in his hands. But you, Daniela Monroe, you make me want to find that other option you talked about. You make me want to be something other than a predator. He kissed her then, and Daniela felt herself falling into something dangerous and irresistible. His lips were demanding, but gentle. Claiming, but asking, and when he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I have to go, he whispered against her lips. Be careful. Always am. Angel. But as Gabriel left, and Daniela stood alone in his penthouse overlooking the city, she knew nothing about this situation was careful. They were playing with fire, and the inevitable burn would hurt more people than just themselves. Across town, in a dimly lit office, Thomas Monroe stared at photographs spread across his desk. His enforcer, Raymond Webb, had just delivered them. Photographs of Gabriel Reeves entering a community center, of him leaving with a satisfied smile, of the building's sign clearly visible, Chelsea Community Arts Center, where Daniela taught every Tuesday. Are you sure? Thomas asked, his voice deadly quiet. Reeves was there for over an hour. Alone with her, then she left 20 minutes after him, looking shaken. Raymond hesitated. Sir, there's more. We followed her tonight. She went to Reeves' building in Tribeca. She's still there. Thomas swept the photographs off his desk with a roar of rage. His baby girl, his innocent Daniela, who wanted nothing to do with this life, was with Gabriel Reeves. The man who'd been trying to destroy everything Thomas built, the man who represented everything Thomas had tried to protect his daughters from, get eyes on her. Every minute of every day. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she sees. Thomas's hands clenched into fists. And find out everything about Reeves' operations. Every warehouse, every deal, every person who works for him. If he wants to use my daughter against me, I'll burn his entire empire to the ground. Sir? What if she's there voluntarily? What if this isn't a kidnapping? The silence that followed was more terrifying than any shout. Thomas looked at Raymond with eyes that had watched men die, that had ordered deaths, that had survived decades in a brutal world. Then we have a bigger problem than I thought. Because if Daniela has feelings for Gabriel Reeves, if she's chosen him over her family, then she's put herself in the middle of a war. And in war, even angels get caught in the crossfire. Raymond left quickly, leaving Thomas alone with his rage and his fear. He'd spent 23 years protecting Daniela from this life, keeping her Separatine safe. And somehow his greatest enemy had gotten to her anyway. The war between Gabriel Reeves and Thomas Monroe was about to become deeply, devastatingly personal. And Daniela, caught between the man she was falling for and the family she loved, was about to learn that some choices destroy you, no matter which path you take. Father, Dominic had known both families for 30 years. He'd baptized Claire and Daniela Monroe, and he'd given last rites to Gabriel Reeves' parents. In the confessional booth of St. Anthony's Church, he'd heard scenes from both sides of this war, and he'd prayed for souls he feared were beyond saving. So when Daniela slipped into his office on a rainy Thursday morning, tears streaming down her face, he wasn't entirely surprised. "I've done something terrible." "Father," she whispered. "Tell me, child." Story poured out. The gala, the meetings, the dinners that had stretched over 3 weeks. The way Gabriel made her feel alive and seen. The way she'd fallen in love with a man she was supposed to hate. "He's changing, Father. He's trying to build legitimate businesses, to move away from violence. He talks about the future differently now." She twisted her hands in her lap. "But my father found out. He has people following me. And yesterday, Gabriel's warehouse was bombed. 4 people died." "Does Gabriel know your father's people are watching you?" "Yes," Nico told him. "But Gabriel won't stop seeing me. He says he'll protect me, that he can keep me safe." Fresh tears fell. "But I don't want protection. I want the killing to stop. I want my father and the man I love to not be trying to destroy each other." Father Dominic sighed heavily. "You're asking for something that may not be possible, Daniela. These men have built their entire lives on power and control. Asking them to change, to forgive, to coexist peacefully goes against everything they are. Then what do? You pray, and you decide what you're willing to sacrifice. Because this path you're on, it will demand sacrifice from everyone involved." That night, Daniela's phone rang. Claire's name flashed on the screen. "Don't come home," her sister said without preamble. "Dad knows about Reeves. He's locked down the house. He has Raymond looking for you right now." Daniela's blood ran cold. "Claire, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you're sleeping with the man who killed Uncle Frank? Who's been trying to destroy our family for years?" Claire's voice broke. "Donnie, I don't care if you're in love. I don't care if he's changing. You've betrayed us. Dad is talking about disowning you. He's talking about using you as bait to get to Reeves. He wouldn't. You don't know what he's become. This war with Reeves has consumed him. And now you've given him the perfect weapon." The line went dead. Daniela stood in her apartment, shaking as the reality crashed over her. She'd thought she could have both, thought love could somehow transcend the violence. She'd been naive. Her door burst open, and Gabriel strode in, Nico behind him. His face was grim. "Pack a bag. We're leaving." "What happened?" "Your father just sent me a message. He has the location of my primary operations center. He knows where I keep my financial records, my evidence files, everything that could bring me down." Gabriel moved through her apartment, grabbing her art supplies and clothes. "He said he'll destroy it all unless I meet him, alone, unarmed. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap." Gabriel's hand stilled on her easel. "But if I don't go, he'll come after you. He made that clear." "So what? You're going to die for me?" Daniela grabbed his arm. "That's not protection, Gabriel. That's suicide. What would you have me do?" He turned to face her, and the anguish in his eyes stole her breath. "Let him hurt you? Use you as leverage?" "I've done terrible things in my life, Daniela. I've hurt people, destroyed families, built an empire on fear. But you made me want to be better? You made me believe I could be something other than what I am. I'm not letting him take that away. I'm not letting him take you. There has to be another way. Nico stepped forward. There is. We hit Monroe first. Hard and fast. Take out his operations before he can move against us. No. Daniela's voice cut through the room. No more killing. No more revenge. This has to stop. Your father won't stop, Gabriel said gently. Men like us, we don't know how. Then learn. Daniela moved in front of him, forcing him to look at her. You said I make you want to be better. Prove it. Not by dying for me, but by living differently. By choosing something other than violence. How do I do that when your father is coming for both of us? Daniela took a deep breath, the idea forming even as she spoke. We meet with him. Together. No weapons. No ambush. Just the three of us, talking. You tell him you're getting out of the criminal operations. I tell him I love you, and I'm not giving you up. We give him a choice. He'll never accept that. Maybe not. But we have to try. Because if we don't, if we just keep fighting, people keep dying, and eventually that will destroy us too. She cupped his face in her hands. I love you, Gabriel Reeves. But I won't be the reason for more death. I won't be the excuse for this war to continue. Gabriel closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. In that moment, he looked exhausted, the weight of his empire crushing down on him. I've never backed down from a fight. This isn't backing down. This is choosing to fight differently. He opened his eyes, and something in them had shifted. If we do this, there's no guarantee he won't kill me the moment we walk in, and we make sure we meet somewhere neutral. Somewhere public enough that he can't afford the attention. The church, Nico said suddenly. St. Anthony's father Dominic would allow it, and Monroe won't risk a public execution on holy ground. Gabriel looked at Daniela for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Set it up. Tomorrow night. Tell Monroe I'm coming to talk, not to fight, and tell him his daughter will be with me. The next evening, the three of them sat in the small meeting room behind St. Anthony's Church. Thomas Monroe arrived with Raymond Webb, his face a mask of controlled fury. Father Dominic stood in the corner, silent witness to whatever would unfold. You have 5 minutes, Thomas said, not looking at Daniela. Then Raymond puts a bullet in your head, Reeves. Dad, please listen, Daniela started, but Gabriel held up a hand. No, let me. He stood, facing the man who'd been his enemy for a decade. I'm dismantling my criminal operations. The gambling, the protection rackets, the gray market imports. All of it. I'm keeping the legitimate businesses and selling off the rest. Thomas laughed, cold and bitter. And I'm supposed to believe that? You're Gabriel Reeves? You don't know how to be anything else. I didn't. But your daughter showed me another way. Gabriel's voice was steady, certain. She showed me that being a predator or prey isn't the only option. That you can choose to be human instead. How poetic. Thomas finally looked at Daniela, and the pain in his eyes made her want to cry. And you, my daughter, who wanted nothing to do with this life, you've chosen him? The man who killed your uncle, who's destroyed dozens of families. I've chosen someone who's trying to change, who wants to be better. Daniela stood, moving beside Gabriel. I love him, Dad, and I know that hurts you. I know you think I've betrayed you, but I'm asking you to try to understand. Understand what? That you've fallen for pretty words and a handsome face? Thomas's voice rose. He's manipulating you, Daniela. Using you to get to me. If I wanted to use her, I would have done it weeks ago, Gabriel interjected. I would have paraded our relationship publicly, used it to humiliate you, to gain advantage. Instead, I kept her hidden, protected her even from my own people, because what I feel for her has nothing to do with you. Everything you do has to do with me. This entire city knows we're at war. Then let's end the war. Gabriel took a step forward. You take my criminal territories. All of them. Absorb them into your operations. I'll leave the city's underworld entirely. The room fell silent. Raymond Webb's hand moved to his gun, and Nico tensed, ready to respond. But Gabriel kept his eyes on Thomas, waiting. Why? Thomas finally asked. Why would you give up everything you've built? Because holding on to it means losing her, and I'm not willing to pay that price. Gabriel's hand found Daniela's, lacing their fingers together. I've spent 20 years building power, accumulating wealth, destroying anyone who stood in my way. I thought that's what made me strong. But the strongest thing I've ever done is stand here and offer you peace. Thomas looked between them, seeing the way Daniela leaned into Gabriel, the way their hands clasped together like lifelines. He saw his daughter's face, radiant despite the fear, more alive than he'd seen her in years. And he saw something in Gabriel Reeves that he'd never expected to see: vulnerability. Truth, if you hurt her, Thomas said slowly. If you ever bring her into danger, if you ever make her cry, I will destroy you in ways that make our current war look like a disagreement between children. Do you understand me? Gabriel nodded. Completely. And you? Thomas turned to Daniela. You're choosing this. Choosing him. Knowing what he's been, what he's done. I'm choosing the man he's becoming. And I'm choosing to believe that people can change, that love can transform even the darkest situations. Daniela's voice didn't waver. I love you, Dad, but I love him too. And I need you to accept that. Thomas Monroe sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 58 years. The war had aged him, the constant vigilance and violence wearing away at his humanity.